LGBT History Society. We have no connection with any other organisation at all, financially speaking, although there are many LGBT community groups and we all like to think that we're all fighting for the same goals, just so you know. I'd like to say very big thanks to Andy, our photographer for this evening. Thank you so much for coming along. And thank you to Sing with Pride Choir. That's the correct title, isn't it? I will do my best not to miss anyone as we go through, so if you think I have, I won't. It's just you might get mentioned later on. Now, you'll probably find this funny. Michael and I were laughing about it earlier because some of you know there's almost a certain word that I say in any address that I do. And I know people take bets on when it's going to happen in the evening. What is it, 7:45 now? Well, it's interesting because, as you know, Eurovision, that's the word. So, what's the time? That's 7:46. You know that. The thing is that, you know, I go every year and I go with my friend Barry. Where are you, guys? Oh, it's right at the back. We interestingly, 100 years ago, wasn't it, at the Latvian, was that Latvian Eurovision? Yeah, so there we are. So I have a legitimate...
No, you don't. Excuse.
What? That's right, I can say it, can't I? Absolutely. Sponsors this evening to have financial support. Without that, we couldn't run this evening, or indeed the whole of the History Month. I'd like to say thank you to Gordon Dean Solicitors, first of all. Where is Gordon? Where are you? Oh, you're there, you're there. Thank you indeed. Very, very kind. Actually, you sponsor us often. We're very, very grateful to you. I would say thank you indeed to Tony Patchin, who, well, she's got umpteen restaurants. I won't bore you with it all, but you'll know her from the Riverbank Chinese restaurant on Riverside, and the Malaysian Delights on Timber Hill, and she has the Lucky Star, St Stephen's, is that? I think maybe. Thank you to Tony. She can't be here tonight, I'm afraid, but she supports us. Our main financial sponsor is the Norwich and District Carers Forum, which is on there as well, yes. Is on there as well. We're very delighted to have the Chief Executive of the Norwich and District Carers Forum with us. We're also very lucky to have the Chair and the Vice Chair. We have Pam and Felicity with them, Pam Peterson and Felicity Hartley, Vice Chair and Chair of the Carers Forum. I'd like you to welcome, please, the Chief Executive, Mr. David Todd.
I've forgotten what Jeremy does, but I think you're the co-chair, aren't you? Yeah, the Carers Forum is the lead organisation in Norfolk that supports carers, that's unpaid family carers, people who have to stay at home and care for a loved one. We have 86,000 adult carers in Norfolk and over 2,000 young carers in Norfolk. And we know many carers come from within the LGBT community, which is why we wholeheartedly support this year's event and wish the committee and the event every success. Thank you, Mr. Co-Chairman.
I'll try to work out our singer by August 37 years. He's best known for his role in BBC's EastEnders. Who used to see him in EastEnders, just as a matter of interest? Fans. Ladies and gentlemen, please give a warm welcome to Michael Cashman, MEP.
Often I travel up to my region. I travel by train, by Virgin, because I have a sense of humour. And I was on the train and this big burly ticket inspector came in and he went, "Tickets, please!" And then he saw me at the end of the coach and went, "Recognise you, tickets, please!" And as he's getting closer, he's having this conversation with me and he said, "Still acting, are we? Tickets, please." So I said, "Oh, no." And he went, "Oh, resting!" And I went, no. And suddenly he got close enough. He said, "Well, what are you doing?" I said, "Well," puffing out my small chest, I said, "Well, 6 months ago I got elected to the European Parliament." He went, "Oh, MEP, that's real fucking acting, is that?" EastEnders, for which I'm so proud to have done. It never leaves me. Like tonight when I came in, David said to me from Carers, he said, you know, we were so disappointed in the kiss. The first kiss on British television that broke the mould. I remember tabloids going mad. The BBC used to film EastEnders at Elf Street, they still do, in Hertfordshire. And I used to drive out in my cheap old Renault, and at the traffic lights, you'd get people go, all right, Colin, where's the other car? Where's the Porsche? And I used to say, it's behind me, he's following it. So I used to drive in and park the car, go to the newsagents, and this particular day, I went to the newsagents, and there, on the front page of the Daily Star, was my picture, with the banner headline that just said, filth. Get this off our TV. And I went in, and there was a concerted effort to get this kiss, this peck on the cheek, removed from an episode of EastEnders. And when we were rehearsing it, because in those days we had to rehearse, Julia Smith, the producer, who was also directing this, she said, can't you be a bit more passionate with him? And I said, Julia, to be honest, I don't think Colin would fancy Barry. She said, Michael, the truth is, you don't fancy Gary, kiss him, it's called acting. So I kissed him full on the lips, and she went, no, it goes out before 8 o'clock at night, you can't possibly do that. And we ended up with a peck on the cheek, and the amazing thing was, that peck on the cheek, literally a peck on the cheek, was embargoed for 20 years and never shown again. EastEnders, again, when I was in the European Parliament and recently elected, and I had to negotiate a Freedom of Information Bill. And for 2 years I negotiated this with the member state governments and with the European Ombudsman, Jakob Söderman, Finnish. And we completed our negotiations, and at the end of all this, he said, Mr. Cashman, he said, I've really enjoyed negotiating the very important dossier. He said, but I have to say to you, every time I'm negotiating with you, I'm not sure whether I'm negotiating with a member of the European Parliament or Colin from EastEnders. But I'm not going to speak for long, because Jeremy, can I congratulate you on the way you have broken the stereotypes, the way you have stood up, and how you became the first openly Lord Mayor of Norwich. No need for you. It was on a Saturday, and I'll be very brief. It was on a Saturday, and you rehearsed on the Saturday. And all of my scenes that day were with June Brown and Wendy Richard, God bless her. I bet she's giving God a hard time. And I said to Wendy, I need to get some talk. She went, oh, Michael, don't talk to me. I don't do the schedule stuff. Don't talk to me. I said, okay. And June, who saw me, June Brown, said, oh, Mike, dear, what's wrong? I said, June, there's a march on Saturday. She went, no, dear, it's not, no, it's January. So I said, no, there's a march on Saturday. Oh, dear, what's that about? So I said, I said, how can I explain, June? And I explained about Section 28. She went, oh, dear, she said, darling, you've got to be there, oh, no. She said, leave it with me, I'll speak to Bill. And she said, Mike, give me this promise, dear. Whatever you do, if there's any trouble, darken if there's sex, get engaged. So I went on this march, and I was forced to the front, because there was a group of actors. I said, no, I'll stay with the actors. And they were going, no, you're fine, you have to go to the front. And the actors were saying, no, you're with us. And no, you have to go to the front. And suddenly I found myself at the front alongside Chris Smith, the first openly gay member of Parliament. The first openly gay member of Parliament in 1986. My God, the closets must have been bursting in the palaces of Westminster. And there was me and Chris and a few others, and off we set on this march. And as we walked past Downing Street, and I want you to remember this, the next time you go past Downing Street, it's about our history. So we marched past Downing Street, suddenly the middle of the march broke away. And do you remember the old crowd barriers? We still have them, just about this high. And that was all that was in front of the entrance to number 10. And the last group of people to invade Downing Street as a protest were lesbian, gay, bisexual and transgendered people and our heterosexual families and friends. So the next time you see those gates, they're actually a monument to the protest led by lesbian, gay, bisexual and transgender people and heterosexuals for civil liberties. So I've been very fortunate. I founded Stonewall because I'm bloody-minded. I always think, and I think in public life you have to. You can't do this to me. And if it's not me, what if I were him or her? And once you have the ability to imagine, the concept of the universality of human rights is absolutely there in your gut, in your head, and in your heart. And you know, discrimination never goes away. It finds other ways of exercising itself. Society finds other scapegoats. But unless we connect with them, our own rights will ultimately go. And you know, Shakespeare, I'm not saying this because he was one of my constituents in the West Midlands. But Shakespeare, if ever you need the truth of a situation, got it brilliantly right. Not just about policing and the fire service, but about so many things. About authority and the lack of authority and the exercise of authority. If you want to read a speech or a play about how discrimination has been around us for centuries, read The Merchant of Venice, which is not an anti-Semitic play. It's a fascinating play about racism, misogyny, homophobia, self-hating homophobia. But if ever you want to read one of the most brilliant speeches which connects with others, and I'll finish on this, it's a play that he co-wrote called Sir Thomas More. And Thomas More is called to the City of London, to the Tower, to quell the crowds, the citizens of London who are protesting because the strangers have made their way from Calais to Dover to London. Strangers. In the same way that the Roma community were kicked out of Italy and out of France. The same way the minorities were picked on in the 1930s because they were different. And Thomas More comes out and he says, you bid that they be removed. The strangers, with their children upon their back, their families at their side, their belongings at their feet. You bid that they be removed. Imagine you are the stranger. With your children upon your back, your family at your side, your belongings at your feet. Imagine you are the stranger and then bid that they be removed and show your Montanish inhumanity. 450 years ago, the same problems, the same voices speaking up on behalf of the voiceless. That is why this month that you are celebrating is a celebration not only of that which generations before us have lived through and been victimized through, but it's a remembrance of what we've got and how, with our friends in the heterosexual community and our families and the mothers and the fathers that we come from, will fight to defend that future.
In Norfolk for almost 36 years and studied at the UEA between 1986 and 89. She then joined BBC Radio Norfolk as the breakfast show presenter in 1990, staying in radio for 5 years before joining the TV team at BBC Look East. She took early retirement from the BBC last year and has never been busier. She is the mother of 2 grown-up children and grandmother of 3. She is Deputy Lieutenant of the County of Norfolk and President of the Girl Guiding Norfolk, a trustee, it's long, isn't it, this? A trustee of the Norfolk Community Foundation and a patron of Nelson's Journey, as well as writing a monthly column for Let's Talk magazine. And in her spare time she loves to cook, garden, read and worships her Cocker Spaniels. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome Deputy Lieutenant of Norfolk, Carol Bundock.
That was very nice, thank you. And Michael, have we ever heard an actor get a Norfolk accent right before? Oh, I thought you were going to say something. And I just thought, that's just ridiculous. And she'd made quite a fuss. A very glamorous woman and caught the attention of the media. So I went across to interview her. She lived in Chatham, New Jersey. And Chatham is just outside Manhattan, commuter town. A bit like Fort St Andrews to the city. Similar. It was dreadful because, a dozen people had died. Wasn't that funny? Fort St Andrews. Are you from Fort St Andrews? Yes. Oh yes. Stanmore Road. South Avenue. It's quite smart. It's quite nice there. Anyway, this woman, I interviewed her in Chatham, and then we went down to Manhattan, saw Ground Zero. It was only a few months after it, and I'm sure lots of you saw it and went and all the rest of it. So it's pretty horrid. However, came back. I mean, you would like to know, as licensed fee payers, I was to Manhattan and back in 48 hours. I hardly had time. I couldn't even see any shops. It was dreadful. However, came back and the report was on the telly the next day. Because she was the part of Essex that BBC London covers as well, it went out in London as well. She got a call from Downing Street the next day, and it led to her eventually being allowed, of course, to stay in the States and everything. So it was quite nice to be part of something that made a bit of a difference. So that was good. I also interviewed Henry Allingham. You may remember he was one of the last 3 of the World War I veterans, and when he was a slip of a lad at 108, he came to Great Yarmouth to get the freedom of the city. Great Yarmouth town. You might like to think it's a city, but we know better. Anyway, it was really wonderful to meet him. It was great fun to meet this guy, shake hands with somebody who'd been at the Somme. A delightful man, actually. Now, of course, I also made a big mistake in my career. I foolishly agreed to go wing walking at the Clacton Air Show. And I was on the utterly bustly plane like that, strapped in. And I thought, oh, it'll be fine, they'll have a cage and you'll be all, whatever. Well, there was some kind of little shooting stick affair that you kind of perched on. And there was a bit of a seatbelt there, and that was it. And I can remember sitting on the top of this plane. The cameraman was air-to-air in another little light aircraft. And I'm all mic'd up and I'm thinking, yeah, what am I doing? I cannot believe it. Straight took up, and off we went round Clacton, and of course, I knew I was being filmed, so I was going, so that was the high point in my career, I suppose you could say. And of course, the other big mistake was the Superbikes came to Snetterton. They had a rehearsal day, and they said, "Oh, you'll go on the back of one, won't you?" And again, I thought it was one of those big gold wings, out here like that, and I thought that would be fine. So we turn up at Snetterton, and there's this tiny little bike. It was weeny, and there was this boy, there was this child. And suddenly I realised that he was actually an expert driver, and so I was behind him like this. And he said, "If it goes too fast for you, just tap on me." 168 miles an hour? Oh, that's great. I'm not going to let go of it. He put a camera on the back of his head filming me. I got my eyes shut. Mascara was coursing down the cheeks. And when we finally got back into the pits, and I was kind of the cameraman came up to me and said, "Oh, I'm ever so sorry, I forgot to press record."